Hi, welcome to Pure Michigan Pour. I'm Brent.
I'm Dan Burrows.
We're here at Iron Fish Distillery.
We're finally here. We're about ready to take our tour. So follow us along on our tour. It's probably mostly going to be Dan as our tour guide.
Yeah.
And it's probably mostly going to be focused on him throughout the tour. But we're going to learn a lot about iron fish.
And the distilling process as well.
These are some of our older barrels, and how I start this tour usually is by letting you know the barrels are a lot like tea bags. So once you get a nice fresh tea bag and you put it in that hot water, you're going to get a really robust taste. You're going to get a good color and everything. Same thing with the first use you get out of one of these barrels that we have right here. These fellows right here have been used 5 to 10 times for different mixes and stuff, and we can no longer get as much out of them without going through the process of relathing them, recharring them, and then putting them back into it. But then we couldn't do bourbon because they got to be a single-use barrel. Okay, so once we retire them, they come out here, and we sell their used ones for about $150 a piece. So this one is our short barrel house. We only have about 800 barrels in here right now. As you can see, we have our retail on one side. Eventually, we're going to retire this house as a barrel house. This will be nothing but our retail house, because we have barrel house number 5, which we're going to take a sneak peek at today. And inside the barrel house number 5 are some rick racks that we had built inside of there. That's what they're finishing up on right now. Once they finish up on those rick racks, we're going to activate 5, and then we're going to take the load of the barrels back over there. There will be small stacks in here, but we don't like the constant opening and closing of the doors and changing our conditions in here for them to come get the retail stuff. So we want those barrels to get the full extent of what they do out there. Now, I hate to start talking and chatting at you without giving you a pour of something. Okay.
All right.
So we're going to start off with our 4 cask. What our 4 cask is, these are 4 of our blended whiskeys. We know they were bourbons at one time, but we can't call them bourbons once we throw them in that cask again for the second finishing on them. So this is our rum finish. This is our cognac finish. This is our maple finish. All 4 of these come together to give a really good, unique taste on it. I love it because as you approach it, each time you approach the glass, you're going to get different scents on your nose, and you're going to get different tastes throughout your palate, from sweet to your finish, and it holds a really nice finish. So we're going to start off with this. You guys purchased your Glencairns when you ordered the tour, so we're going to do our tastings in Glencairns today. And they give me the short pour one, so it might take a minute. There you go, sir.
Nice.
There you go. We're going to do a little bit of tasting on both of this one right there. You've had a taste of that right there. And then I'm going to backtrack you, and I'm going to just let you see what our mash bill, which everybody knows what a mash bill is. That is just what us distillers call recipe. So this is what our pure grain recipe is going to taste like. We'll clean out those glasses, and we'll let you see what it tastes like from the source. Okay. What does a barrel do for us when it changes that? Well, like we just said, it gives 100% of the color to that spirit that you're drinking for your whiskeys. The other thing that it does is when it's charred, it's going to give you a carbon filter. So it's going to clean up those off flavors and off tastes that you don't want inside of that whiskey. How does it do it? It takes one big long breath is what it does. And it takes us a year. That is why whiskey is gauged in years, because that cycle of 1 year is how long it takes for this barrel to do one big old breath. So as you look in here, what we have are 5 char levels. This is a char 3. This is where we like our bourbon at, as a char 3, because we are going after those specific wood sugars at that layer, the wood cellulose and flavors that we want here. We use 2 different cooperages. One that you're probably familiar with is called Crow's Nest. That's down in Grand Rapids, closer to the area where you're at. Unfortunately, they're a smaller cooperage and they can't keep up with the amount that we need. So we also bring in from Seguin Moreau. Seguin Moreau is a California cooperage. And why do we go that far? They still use the typical white oak. It is tied to a cooperage in France, thus the name. But what they do is they give you a flavor list basically on each char of what their wood is going to do. And they do that by doing a detailed examination of their wood every time, so that you got to get it your way. At a char 3, you see it's still pretty smooth. You do get a little bit of roughage in here, but a char 4 and char 5, so we're 5 char levels. When we get up to char 4 and char 5, they call those alligator chars. And why they call them alligator chars is because they're going to go so deep, it's going to look bumpy and ridgy like an alligator's back. So that's why it's called an alligator char. Those aren't the flavors and profiles that we want for our whiskeys, but it is the flavors and profiles, the oaky or the leathery stuff that we want for our dark rums that we're going to set back up in here. So our bourbons and whiskeys are going to be 2, 3. That's what the majority of what we order in is. And then we do some 4 and 5 barrels when we want to do those dark rums on those long sets. Okay, so what happens is, as the temperature changes throughout the year, so does the barometric pressure. That means that the fluid that's inside one of these barrels will either expand or contract. In the summer, we know when fluids are heated up, they expand. So as these barrels get warmer throughout the year, they're going to take that first big, deep breath in, just like your lungs do, and they're going to bring all of it in, and it's going to push it to where it pushes it into this wood, pushing it through this carbon filter that we got, this natural carbon filter we got for charring right here. Gonna lay in that wood for the entire season as long as it remains hot. Once the season changes, the temperature starts coming down, the barrel pressure starts coming down, it's gonna bring that whiskey back out of that wood and bring us all those good flavors that it's been tearing down inside there with the ethanol and pushing it back into the middle of this barrel. As it does that for year after year, eventually that's gonna give you those flavor profiles you want. Is there a requirement for how long you settle bourbon in a barrel? No. There is no time requirement. I could load this up with a bourbon, 53 gallons, and then I could put a cork in it, then I can turn it over and pop that cork right back out and pour it into a thing, and that is going to be whiskey. But it isn't going to be whiskey you want. Not unless you like White Dog, because that's practically what it's going to be. You're going to see very little coloration, none if you do it that quickly, but there is no law saying it. There are 6 things that we know bourbon has to have. Number 1, it has to be made in America or province of America, property Puerto Rico, so forth, to be called bourbon. We know that it has to be at least, anybody? How much corn?
51%.
51% corn. 51% corn in the mash bill to be called bourbon. We know it can't come off the still at any higher than, anybody know?
120?
That's going into the barrel. 160 coming off the still.
still.
No higher than 160 coming off the still. Why is that important? Because when we get to our NGSs, our neutral grain spirits, and our vodkas, and some of the white alcohols we make, all of that has to come off at about 190. Okay. That's where our proof point is for that. So we are going to come off no higher than 160. Into the barrel is our next step, and into the barrel it can't go any higher than 125. 125 into the barrel. Then when we pull it out of that barrel, we can't add anything to it except for neutral water. And what neutral water, RO water is it's just a water that has no flavor and it has no smell, so it adds nothing to it. All it does is bring those proof points down to where you want it when you have to add it. Because we know that you have to keep monitoring these barrels because they are the hardest wood. It is white oak. It is the densest wood, and that's why we utilize it, so that we don't have too much leakage. They do use waxes and stuff, but never any fasteners, never any glues or adhesives or anything like this. These are all form-fitted barrels for that reason, so that we don't give any bad flavors off for it. Once it comes out of this barrel after setting for a while, we know that it cannot go into a bottle of whiskey at any less than 80 proof. Has to be 80 proof and no additives whatsoever. Those are the rules that make whiskey, or bourbon. Bourbon is whiskey, but all whiskey isn't bourbon, and that's the way they say. Same rules with the rye. They got to be 51%, and a lot of them you'll see is either barely legal rye at 51%, or the pure rye. You'll see the 100s, or like the Bullet, they like the 95.5s. Yeah, those type of things, especially for those rye drinkers. I'm a big rye guy myself. Actually, I was able to get us a bottle of the brand new, this year's release, bottled and bond rye, our estate stuff.
Nice.
So that means it was all from our farm, our fields. As you came in, you probably saw the signs.
Yep.
One of them over here says 32 future barrels of whiskey. Mm-hmm. One of them over there says 52 future barrels of whiskey. We don't own that land across there. That little tiny chalet back there in the back, that monster, they own that. We lease it from them to grow our rye, so we can keep it right here local for us. The only thing that we can grow over here, though, is the rye, because their ground is, there's a lot of sand in the topsoil here, and none of the other grains will respond good to that. Kind of part of it. And when we go and take a little look at the front fields, I'll tell you the story of how this became a distillery and not a wine or nursery for wine vines and hops, because hops also does not like the sandy areas.
Great.
Okay, we bring in barrels from all over the world. We have mezcal barrels. We do a mezcal finish on our whiskey. We get those directly from the mezcal company in Mexico. Our rum comes from the Caribbean. We get our rum and we get our sugars for our rum from the Caribbean, because why try to change anything that they've been doing right for hundreds of years? We also have the cognac from France, sherry barrels. And I think I left that off when I was talking about the 4 casks. That's the 4th ingredient in there, was the sherry, because I don't remember saying that now.
I don't remember.
But that is the 4th of that 4 cask. Now, that 4 cask isn't a 1 for 1 for 1. We know that some of those flavors and some of those finishes are stronger than the others. So what we do is we bring it in. They got the ratios right. Once they got those ratios where we wanted that product and that spirit to display and project for our bottles, they locked it in right there, and now they know what ratio they need to do when they make their new batches each time with our master blender, Isaac. Ted, we do a lot of the retail stuff over here. This is our maple weekend, so we're doing a little bit of an emphasis on the maple. I told you that we get finished barrels from all over the world. We also get, that guy right there is Mr. Scott Steiner. He makes the best maple syrup you've ever going to have. Mr. Steiner brings us over maple syrup right there in those barrels that you see. He will bring it to us, and how do we do our finishing? So what we do here at Iron Fish is we will never give you an MGP product that's an MGP product. We're gonna put our fingerprint and our touch onto each and every one of those products that we make. So we're gonna take that maple, we're gonna put that MGP in there and let it set. Then we're gonna take that barrel that we got from them, and we're gonna fill it up with Mr. Steiner's maple syrup. We're gonna slap it back up here for about 9 months on our rack. We're gonna let it set and finish with that maple syrup. When it's done, we're gonna bring that maple back down. We're gonna put it back in one of these still drums, and we're gonna move it right on over to our bottling, which we'll take a quick look at later. It's just a very small bottling. It's a 5-person bottling section. They will then put it in, and that is our bourbon flavored maple syrup that we sell here at Iron Fish and distribute out throughout Michigan. Really good. Once I brought that home, the kids gave Miss Butterworth her walking paper, her eviction notice, and now they will only take it. And it also comes with cinnamon, so their French toast has to have that. So we need a bottle of each, of course. So that is how we do it. That is how our maple bourbon is made. It is #1. It is our favorite. You see it has several gold medals that it has been awarded throughout the process.
It's ours too.
It's our favorite.
It's your guys' favorite, yeah. The rye with maple is also really good. I don't know if you've had that yet. We're unfortunately sold out of that. I wanted a bottle of that for you guys, but that's okay. We're going to make up for it with that bottle and bond rye we have a little bit later.
Excited about that too.
Okay, we're going to take a little walk. We're going to clean out those glasses for you real quick. Make right here on Iron Fish.
Okay, great.
Nice.
All right, we're going to move on. We're going to move on over here. I'm going to let you see a couple of these other ones. Like I said, this is all retail. These are some of our older barrels. Iron Fish was established in 2016. On Labor Day, we had our 8th birthday. So our birthday is on Labor Day. So in 2024 was our 8th birthday, which means we've got some 8-year stuff floating around in here. But as you know, when you open up a new craft distillery like this, originally you don't have any product. So you have to source in just like everybody else does. And for that first 4 years, you're probably going to be working off source whiskey. That's why for us, there was no estate whiskey until the 4th or 5th year as it came out to where we could get those taste profiles and proof points exactly where we wanted them, where we felt most comfortable, and where we did a lot of asking the community as they were here, you know, where would you put this? Where would you, because we'd like the feedback, because there's a lot of good whiskey minds that come through here that have been in a lot of places, and they can give you, you learn from everybody. So as you come through, these are our older barrels back here. You're probably looking at 6 to 8 years right here of our estate stuff. You'll see that we are grain to glass, so that means farm to table kind of stuff. The only grain that our organic farmer doesn't provide for us is our malted barley, which you'll see we get from the Great Lakes barley. We order it by poundage of what we need for our mash bill, and they deliver as such, and then we just offload it and put it up, and through the process we'll talk about a little bit when we go over there.
Yeah,
but these right here, as you can see, a U.S. standard barrel is 53 gallons. These are not. These are 59. These are 63. And why they're that? Because these are our cognac and our sherry casks that we got in from Spain and France that are doing a finish right now on some of our MGP whiskey. So all of our finished products are MGP based with our finish on them. We'll put 9 to 12 months of finish on every one of the products that we put on up there. Except for the maple. The maple can be no longer than 9 months when we let it set to do its saturation, because after that it starts dry rotting the wood, and that'll take away some of that resistance that we get with this hard white oak. You guys know what this is? So once we're done with the still, this is what comes out of it. Super high, yeah. So this is super high in proteins, super high in vitamins and minerals. So we have a bison farmer so we don't have to dispose of this. He comes out here with his old 5-ton Army truck, pulls up right here, and we load him up for him. He takes this and throws it into his feed so that this brings his feed up to a higher quality. We get it disposed of in a way that it is still being used and resourced.
Nice.
They're very good about what they do. They're great stewards to the land.
That's great.
If you're not loving that white dog, this is a great opportunity to toss it into the soil on either side.
I was wondering.
I see you guys. No whiskey stays in a glass that long. That's good. All right, some of our special projects with the heating and stuff, we're going to talk about that more when we see the big heat exchanger.
Okay.
But this right here are some of our connexes. Before we had our barrel houses, this is originally where we started doing some of the aging process. And when we want to get to a special project, a small batch thing that we're working on, we'll utilize these and just suffocate them in the summer to make sure they push as much as that into that wood grain so we can get as much of that flavor and that out of those barrels. We're going to keep on moving. Each one of these, as you've noticed, has a fish on the side. This is house 4. I don't know if 5's got its fish yet. It will soon. This is our newest barrel house. Once you come in here, now you're going to experience a little more. It has been opened a few times, but this is what we like to call well, not what we like to call, what everybody calls the angel's share. Take a few steps in and a big old breath, and you'll see why they call it that.
Oh.
Yeah, see, it's a little different than in that other one, right?
So good.
So, this is the largest capacity of what we hold right now. There's approximately 1,200 barrels in here right now. They're shifting and moving some stuff right now because we do have Barrel House 5 coming online soon. When it comes online, that's going to give us the capacity here at Iron Fish to do 5,000 barrels aging at a time. Ooh. Finishing or aging at one time, which is great for us. Because of the great community response, we've been having to decrease our production by 20% each year just to keep up with the demand. Yeah. Last year, our bourbon and rye were gone by October. So if you didn't come early, you didn't get any. We've had bourbon hunters coming all the way from the Detroit area, Sterling Heights and stuff, looking for it. Said, man, you should have called, but I will tell you a couple stores in the area that you may have some luck. I went out, I was only able to find one of our ryes. That's how popular they've gotten. I love it. This year is going to look a little different. So when I talked about the MGP products and the finishing that we're doing, that's these bottles right here. You can see all the different finishes that we have here. Most of it is maple right now because that is where we are. This, however, is what our estate bottle looks like. Okay. It's going to be a different design. It's going to have the Iron Fish on it. And we do this with Berlin Printing. They're the ones that help us out with our labels, and it has won a gold medal for this labeling. The coolest thing about this year is, for the first time ever, Iron Fish is going to have an age statement right here. Nice. Because we're going to be putting out our 6-year bourbon. So It's one of that first high point marks that we've really been anxious for, and we're finally going to have our age statement on the side of it, which for me as a whiskey guy that also likes to hunt, I like to see that. I want to see what my whiskey, I don't want to guess what my whiskey got or have to research for a half hour to figure out where we're at with that. So 6 years, and that's going to say, hey, whatever's in that bottle has to be a minimum of 6 years. If it's a blend, the age statement is going to be anywhere. Like if you get a barrel product, there may be 5 different whiskeys in there. Some of them may be 18 years, but one may be just a 5 year. So that's all they can put on there is that age statement. So we're very proud that we're going to be able to put 6 years on these. All right, so
You'll be here.
I started you off nice and easy, but we're going to move up to 113 proof. And then you said we talked a little earlier. That's about in your proof point for you guys.
Where
So
we like it. Yep.
this is our barrel strength bourbon whiskey in our maple barrels. So we have a better taste. Let me get that white dog out of there. We only invite him to the party one time just to give you that experience. He's not popular.
No.
All right.
I may have had a few bottles of this. Oh, yeah. It is interesting, though, now that I've had the white dog, now I can kind of tell where
you're going to get those the scents
from.
that are more pleasant, the sweeter, you're going to get the mapley, the vanillas, and all those things that come at that layer with that char.
Yeah.
Well, this is the Imperial Stout.
Oh, yep, you're right.
Oh.
This is the Imperial Stout. It is. I'm
Hold
sorry.
it, hold on a second.
I had them backwards.
Yep.
So this is the Imperial Stout. This All-Star Brewery downtown.
Yep.
I don't know if you've seen it yet, or you said you've done some time in Traverse City. This is where we get our stout barrels from, and then they get their whiskey barrels from us.
Very good.
And they do a stout with a whiskey finish
This one I
as
have
well.
not had.
I haven't had
Oh,
this
you
one
hadn't
yet.
had that?
No, this
No.
one I have not had.
Yeah,
but
that's a lot of people's favorite. They
I
like
do like
that.
the stout.
Ooh.
They like the mezcal too, because the
Yep.
mezcal actually, everybody's expecting that really heavy tequila forward, but that's not what it brings to the party. It brings a really nice finish on it. We've actually sold out of the mezcal too. That's one of the ones I want to put out here for you guys. Unfortunately, we've completely sold out of the mezcal as well because of its popularity.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got that smell, and that was the Angel's Share. Let's talk about how we get that. When we bring a bottle in, we're going to bring it in, and we're going to take it up to about 50 gallons. We're going to take it right up to its top ring point. So what this is the evaporation process. We say that we use white oak because it's one of the densest woods, and it's resistant to, it's waterproof basically. So but it's not, molecules can still escape, and a lot of them, a lot more than you think actually. So when we first bring it in our first year, when it's settling, when it's getting into that groove and assuring that fit, we're going to lose about 7% of this barrel in that first year. For every year we age it afterwards, we're going to lose another 2 to 3% each year that we age this. That's why when you get those 18, 20-year-old whiskey, scotches, what have you, they're probably working with about this much of the barrel left. Now, if it's something that's not coming out at barrel strength, we know we're going to add some of that negative water to keep the proof point right, because when it escapes with the whiskey, it also takes a lot of that water with it as well. So that means that proof point is going to keep increasing over and over and over again until we get it. So we'll start the tasting process about a year out of when the suspected date is for this release on that barrel. That's when our tasting process will begin. When we do our tasting process, now they moved the barrels on me. I used to have my, you know what, let's go on down here to the Rick Rack.
What'd you say on? What'd you need? I did already.
As a barrel gets tasted here at Iron Fish, we're going to take that cordless drill and we're just going to drill a hole right on into it, right? We're going to put it on one of these Rick Racks. We'll drill a hole, and you see at the end of that one right there, somebody drilled a hole. We used the siphon. We took it out. We did the flavor testing on this. This is a special batch. That's why they're on Rick Racks instead of barrel stacks. That is the difference between a Rick House and a barrel house. Barrel house is not on Rick Racks, and that is the only difference. What is the overall difference? Well, if you look at the barrel stack, once you get deep inside of there, that whole barrel is not getting the air you really want it to, because of the constraints of how many barrels we have to produce and the amount of space that we had to do it. Why we had to get into 5 and start building it early is because we have just run out of room. And that is the only reason we stack instead of rack, is because we need the extra space right now. But we still do a really good rotation. If you look around, you'll see there's pressure and temperature monitors, and those pressure and temperature monitors, what they do is let us know, hey, this is the range you need to be. They've got that all on a chart, and they know how they need to stack and move these with the high-low to make sure we're getting, you know, the good stuff up here. Some of the big distilleries, your Kentucky distilleries, they're set racks. So where that barrel goes is where it stays. That's why people look for where it is on what row and what rack and what house as well, is because the ones that sit on top are absolutely going to get the most of your breathe in and breathe out effect for it, because they're going to be the ones that get the most of the climate. Heat rises, so it's going to get the most of that as well. And that's why we do the same thing. What's amazing, that this team that we've got here, that's amazed me, is they have never broken one of those light assemblies, and you see how close they have to get to stack those things.
Yeah.
And it just amazes me that not one time have they done it. We just got a great little team. There's only about 10 people total on our production team.
Okay.
Oh.
Right now, there's only 8 because we just had 2 that recently had to move on. So, you know, hey, we're hiring at Iron Fish. So once it's been tasted, you'll know, because what they're going to do is once they vampire out that amount they needed for the tasting, at that time they're going to go ahead and put a stainless steel screw back in there, because that will not, the ethanol can't break down what the stainless steel is. It won't add anything or take anything away from the flavor from it. But that also lets us track where we're at in that tasting of that each individual rack. Now, when you see these racks here, you see these barrels get beautiful coverage all the way around that barrel in the environment. Would we prefer to have the space to do them all on rick racks? Absolutely, we would. Sure, you're going to get the best results on the rick racks. And as you see in House 5, we've built rick racks. So there's the majority of them in there are going to be on rick racks. So some barrel stacks off the side, but our estate stuff is absolutely going to be in those rick racks. Here's the bourbon finished in the maple.
There you go.
So I was just kidding. I was just seeing how you guys were paying attention, seeing what kind of whiskey connoisseurs you guys were.
I would have caught it when I sipped it.
Yeah.
Although I mixed up a rye and a bourbon yesterday, so
Yeah, you did.
that was.
Well, use barely legal rye. You can
Right,
do that,
yeah.
because you'll still get those notes that you get in a typical bourbon. It's a bourbon drinker's rye, is what they call them. You know,
This, yeah.
always got to have backup, just in case. That's right there.
Yeah. So good.
So that angel's share is what I talked about when we talked about the progression of the aging of these barrels and what it releases. What we've come to find is we're losing about, I think he said, almost when we're at full capacity and when we get to 5,000 barrels, we're going to lose about 10 gallons a week into the air.
Okay.
So that's why, as you see this process, and we'll talk a little more when we get over to the distillation part of it, you're losing. You're starting with this poundage, you're starting with this water, and all along the process, you're going to lose and lose and lose. And why you're losing is you're losing all that bad stuff off it. You're getting rid of all that water. I'm a guy that likes those high proofs. More juice, less water for me. You can keep your water. Thank you very much. If I need to add some, I'll get a big rounder or 1.5 square and put it in there. And that's how I'll drink it if I want to proof it down a little bit. But most of the time, I just like it neat. That's how it's meant to be. Okay, that is about it for our barrel tour and how we do it here. I told you we're not going to stop here because we're going to go and do a little something special today. Okay. We're going to go over to Rick 5. It's not complete yet, but we're going to take a look and so you can see what it is. We've also done some Whiskey Club member stuff over there so you can see what our Whiskey Club members get, where they can pick up and stuff like this. So we've created lockers for them. So as the new releases are there, we'll just go right on over, put them in their lockers. Each one of them will have a combination, and we'll take a good look at that when we go over there.
Okay, great. Over
there, we're going to drink some estate whiskey.
Oh boy.
And I'm going to bring this with us. Oh, real quick. You probably wondered why this guy's autographed right here. One. So one of the events we do every year here at Iron Fish is a shout out to our cooperage. This is Crow's Nest, C-R-O-Z-E, Crow's Nest Cooperage down in Grand Rapids. What they do is they'll come up and they'll make one of these barrels right in front of our crew on our Labor Day weekend, on the weekend that we do our birthday celebration. Once that's made, they'll put it out front and we'll have it on a little stand out front. And anybody that visits us over that Labor Day weekend, over our birthday weekend, gets to sign it. So once they sign it, they will go into a book and we'll do announcements. And what happens is whenever this whiskey comes up to be opened, we'll give them a call. Or we won't personally give them a call. We'll give them a shout out on our newsletter and a shout out on the emails and say, hey, we're opening your barrel this year. Or we're opening 2020 barrel this year. If you come and you find your name and we can find your name on here, then you get to have a tall pour off of this for free.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
So it's part of that, and we rotate it every year, and then it brings the people back, and they get to enjoy their spirit after a while. Some of our local folks, they come with a marker. I think I've seen an increase of these by 5 times over the last year when there's only supposed to be one a year. So I'm wondering how many black felt marker pens come in here and mark up stuff. But yeah. That's one of the special things we do. We also have in May, we have Hats and Horses coming up. That's a ticketed event that we do, and that's the Kentucky Derby. The special part of it that we do out here is we do all of this stuff. We try to tie in a release with it as well. Sometimes the members release, but we also run our own horse race right out here on the road in front of the distillery. That for the folks, and then we project the Derby onto the screens or onto the TVs for your viewing. So this is Rick House 5.
Ooh.
This is going to be our new one. You see, it's a little bit different. It's going to be because this is going to be our area where our tours are going to go from now on. Right now, when I take you through the barrel houses, unfortunately, our production crew works full time as well. They work 6 days a week. So a lot of times we're not fighting. We never fight here at Iron Fish, but we are in the way sometimes of their high-low activity, moving barrels, doing hearts and stuff like that. So this is actually going to be the last barrel house, and this whole section right here is going to be dedicated to tours and our whiskey club. I told you about Seguin Moreau. This is the Seguin Moreau barrel icon.
Cool. Very cool.
That is our other Coopers. That's who brings these ones in. What this is going to be when it's done is these are our whiskey club members' lockers.
Okay.
So what's going to happen is as they get something in, a new release is done. If they can't get up here, what we'll do is we'll put it inside of their lockers. Each one of their lockers has a small combination lock on it. We have lockers for all of these. There's about 340 of them. That's why the lighting's a little different.
Okay.
So this here is going to be our tour area. Right now, as I was telling them before you came back in, we have a lot of issue because production has to use that same throughway for 2 and 3 to get to those rick houses. So we needed another rick house that isolate and where we could bring our tours without having to just shoo them to the side every time for safety concerns. So this is going to be that area. So there's going to be a big movable bar that goes here, and that's where we're going to do all of our tastings and stuff. And like I said, these are our lockers, and these are for our members. So it's $350 for a membership, and what you get is the 3 whiskeys that we have available right now for that, which will be the rye, which will be the 5-year French staves, and the 4-grain or the malted barley. So what would they call that over in Scotland? Well, they call it Scotch, but we can't call it that because they have proprietary rights to Scotch. But these racks were actually built by our owner.
Oh.
So the Iron Fish that you saw out on the outside of the building, that is also David. He is one of those Renaissance kind of guys. He also built our office over in production that we'll see over there. He's just one of those guys who do it all. So these are our whiskey club. These are 2 of them. We're going to have some tastes of these today. I think I watched on one of your videos. You guys said that you liked ryes.
Yeah.
We have 2 bottled and bond products. Our wheated whiskey is bottled and bond. So 100 proof. And this one is for Whiskey Club members only, and that is our bottled and bond rye. So those are our 2 bottled and bonds that we do right now. As we get more, like I told you earlier, about 2028 is when we anticipate we won't have any more NGP product on site. We won't have to source in anymore. We'll rotate through what we already have. By that time, we should be 100% estate pure, and all of the bottles are going to look like this as our estate whiskey.
Yeah, beautiful bottles.
Where do you guys want to start? We have 5-year French oak.
I want to try the rye.
You got this rye? All right. We're going to get after this rye.
Mm-hmm.
Oh. I didn't want to invite the stopper to the party, but he came anyway.
The nose on
You like that?
So it's fantastic.
Yeah. I was impressed, and I'm a rye guy, you know. And when you ask, what's your favorite whiskey? Well, Iron Fish is my favorite whiskey, of course. But outside of Iron Fish, I'm an old Forster fan. I love their ryes. I love what Michter's done with their ryes. But as we know, Michter's, a lot of that is, or Michter, however you want to say it, a lot of that is MGP product as well. Yep. Just built to their, a lot of people just send their recipe
Contract
to
distillers.
MGP,
Sure,
contract it, and then they will distill it to theirs. We buy just their source stuff for our finishing, but like I said, eventually it'll all be this right here.
Yep, I can live with that.
2028 will be a big, big year for us because we're going to do some big releases. That's going to be our, of course, 2006 or 16 is when we started. 24 was our 8 year, so 28 is going to be 12 years. So we'll probably have some 10-year product at that time, some 10-year age stated stuff out there as well. Now, will we continue to go up like that? Probably not until we get a heavier source in. And eventually, it says 32 acres of rye because it takes an acre of rye to make 1 barrel of our whiskey. I think it's going to say 26 one year and then 20 one year because as we're having to produce for our customers, more rick houses are going to be necessary, and that's probably where they're going to go, is they're going to work their way into that rye field over there. So I think what they want to have at finishing point, or where they want to be, is about 10,000 barrels on site aging at any time, which would be about twice what our output is right now.
About 10 rick houses.
But that's down the road quite a ways. Yeah, that's wishful thinking, hoping that the whiskey game stays high where it is right now. But we know the spirits fluctuate, you know, from clear to whiskeys and what is popular at that time. Right now, it seems like I see a lot of trend headed towards single malt type of stuff coming up there right now. So,
sure.
So what do you guys think about that rye?
That's fantastic.
Does it match the nose on the palate, or
Yes.
are you finding it?
Yes, it does.
So, like I said, on all of ours, we have our proof statement, and then we have our mash bill, and then this one has got it back here, a little fancier done because it's our.
Love that.
So, you'll also number right here, this number right here, and why is that important? Because this is a bottle and bond product. So, as a bottle and bond product, what does that mean? Well, in 1892, they did the Bottle and Bond Act, and why that was is probably because some senator somewhere that loved his whiskey got a bad batch of it. Because back in the days, they used to take a barrel of brand new whiskey that they just distilled. They would go to the local saloon. They'd pick up that community spittoon at the end of the bar. They would take it out to their barrels. They would pour that tobacco leavings into their barrels. They would roll their barrels, and then they would sell it as aged whiskey.
Oh.
Or they would take shoe polish and go on the insides of the barrels with shoe polish. Yikes. And also do it that way, because people are going to look at that color and say, oh, this has got to be aged whiskey, because that's how you know if your whiskey's young or if it's older, is by the color that it's taken on through the years of going back and forth through that carbon that we see. So that's how they used to get away with it.
I knew about the shoe
So we
polish.
stopped
I've never heard of
it.
this
Yeah,
spittoon
so
thing.
1892, they came up with the Bottle and Bond Act. And what that meant was there used to be a ton of government facilities. There still are some, not as many, and most of them are where, of course, in Kentucky, because that's where it began. And what that would mean is the agent that was overseeing the warehouses would have one key, and then whoever the customer was for that warehouse would have the other key, and the only way that they could access those barrel houses, rick houses, was for both people to be present at one time so that nobody could mess with the barrels. You had a government agent that was there and the owner of the barrels at the same time. Only way to access, and that's what kept the product pure. And you knew that you got a bonded product on the other side, and that's what killed all those bootleggers that were making that really terrible whiskey for us. So we're going to move on over. This was the second presentation. I'm going to do a little, no, come on.
That's funny.
Ooh. This is the bourbon with the French staves. So
Oh, yeah. You get
this
that.
is aged 5 years
You get that
with
oak.
French oak staves.
Oh.
This was the second release of our bourbon club, our whiskey club. This was the fourth release. Our third release was a single malt that is completely gone now. And then our first release was another bourbon. Now with the barrels, I told you we have some special projects that we got going on in the blending area too. We have the 2 cooperages, and then of course the MGP barrels that whoever they source from bring into us when we do our finished products. These Seguin Moreau are about, we're looking about the 700, 800 range when they're new barrels. A little cheaper for the Crow's Nest because they are local and we don't have the the distribution and shipping and all that stuff we have to worry about. We have a Mitsunura barrel that we got from Japan. Mitsunura is, I don't know if you've had any Mitsunura finished product, but there's going to be some that come out from here, very small batch stuff, because each Mitsunura barrel, complete work of art. But it comes with a work of art price tag too, because they go for about $5,000 per barrel. You're going to see the difference is you're looking at probably 3/4 staves here, 3/4 inch staves. Those are about 1/4 inch staves, and it was the most beautiful thing I ever saw. It had a glow to it almost when they brought it in. But it's on its 4th project now. So after this last project, we're going to go ahead and take it. We're going to de-ring it. Then we're going to break them staves up, and we're going to take those staves and we're going to add them just like we did these French oak staves to another small batch release for our Whiskey Club members.
Beautiful.
Eventually, I think we're going to work our way to where we're going to have enough special releases that it won't just be Whiskey Club that get them. Unfortunately, as a smaller craft distillery, we're only in our 8th year. Most don't really get run until 10-year mark and stuff, but we're a little bit ahead of the game here at Iron Fish. That is why we're standing in our 5th rick house right now, is because we have got a little ahead of the game and just had great community response. And it's because we tie into the community. Why are we Iron Fish? Because the Betsy River is right across that field over here. And that Betsy River, that's where the steelhead run from Lake Michigan. And what is the nickname for the steelhead? They are called the Iron Fish because of that journey that they make. And that is what we took our name from. Mad Angler, where did we get that from? Mr. Michael Delp is an author. He wrote the book called Mad Angler. It's a book of poems. And he talks about the plight of the steelhead and what they have to go through and how man completely changed their environment and the struggles from the fish perspective. Great work of art. He teaches. He's a local professor here at the Interlochen School of Arts. He was nice enough to lend us the name Mad Anglers. We brought him out, brought him some dinner, and Richard, I told you he's that guy. He went out and talked to Mr. Delp, say, hey, we would like to make our estate whiskey named after you, ties us in with Interlochen School of Art and to our fish and natural resources that we have here. So we're going to finish off and we'll do a pour and a walk.
Okay.
This is the wheated. So this is our estate bottled and bond. This is not Whiskey Club. This is a release every year. Same thing applies as we talked about with the rye. It is bottled and bond, so it's covered by the 1892 Act, which means it's also going to have all the proofing, all the mash bill, and then we're going to have that big old number right there that says we did this in a bonded facility. What's the difference between the estate and our finished stuff? This is 100% Iron Fish from those fields right out there to the fields in the next county where our farmer goes, or the Great Lakes Malt Barley Company that brings us our malted barley. It is produced here, distilled here, grown here, distilled here, aged here. Never leaves this estate. It is estate whiskey at all times, and it's 100% our product. And I liked our finished stuff, but I love our estate stuff.
This is very good.
It's a step up when you move to our estate stuff.
We gotta get another shelf.
we probably have,
I don't have enough room.
we're going to have a shelf just for Iron Fish.
Yep.
So this is the old family homestead, the family farm. This was only owned by one other family before Iron Fish took it over, and that was the Chamberlain family. They resided out here. George Chamberlain was born in 1876, so about 100 years after our revolution, they started taking up land here. They had an original plat of 640 acres, so 1 mile by 1 mile plat is what that is. They got that in 1887, so the farm was established in 1887, once Michigan had this as titled land, and it was part of the Homestead Act of 1862. And I don't know if you've heard about that, but that was basically our government saying, hey, get off the East Coast. We need you guys to move to the Midwest and then eventually out West. So as part of that, they paid $500 for 480 acres. And then under the Homestead Act, they were granted another 160 acres as long as they resided on that property for 5 years, continuously working it. At the end of that 5-year period, then the land was granted over to that family and put in the family name. So that's how they established the original 640. We don't sit on 640 acres. We actually sit on 120 acres. We lease out another 84 acres from some of the folks that bought up some of the other plots so that we can grow our Hazlitt rye over here. Once we grow that Hazlitt rye, that was our original plot. If you look over there, they're hard to see, but there are some grapevines over here. The original project was before any of this was realized, because these folks stayed out here all the way into the early 1990s. Unfortunately, the last of the Chamberlains weren't married until they were in their 60s. So their first marriage was in their 60s because they were dedicated to the farm, and that was Victor from the Chamberlain family here, George's son. They had 4 kids. He was the third of those. He was born in 1907. So he, from 1907 until 1992, he was out here, and then they were too old, and since they were in their 60s, of course, they didn't have children. There was no one to take care of them, so eventually they had to move them into a retirement home, and then from that time till 2012, this land sat with no ownership, just looking for somebody to take it over, which was eventually their nieces and nephews. They split it up between them, so each of them got different pieces of the plat. Once they did that, they started selling it off. Whoever got it, up to them what they sold off was. This road right here led David and Heidi to their summer home down on the Betsy River, so they would pass this property every day. David was getting ready to retire, and he needed to think about something he was going to do in retirement, because if you've ever seen him, like I said, he's an Energizer bunny. He doesn't stop. He always has to have something going on. So the original 40 acres is what starts right here at where you see those hops trellises across there, and it goes all the way around the corner into the back trees back there. He got that original 40 acres because he was going to do a startup nursery for wine, for vines, grapevines, and hops. Unfortunately, hops don't like the sandy soil like we talked about, so we built the trellises before we did the analysis and found out that hops was not going to work here. So it sat without much thought for a while, and then Richard, on his 60th birthday, this is a family owned, so it's the Heidi and Sarah, the 2 sisters, and then Richard is Sarah's husband, and David is Heidi's husband. They all had other careers that they were doing, but they went to Michigan State together, so they were all about the same time frame. They were getting ready to retire. Richard's 60th birthday, they had already bought the 40 acres I told you about, and then David had talked her into buying this 80 acres on the north side of the road. But there was a caveat that she said, okay, I'll let go of that money, because I believe she was a CPA in her previous life. So money, you got to talk to her, makes sense. He'd already bought 40 acres over there, and they didn't get anything going over there. So she's like, you want another 80 acres? Well, okay, no problem. The original Chamberlain house is now been brought up to code and as electricity, because they didn't have plumbing or electricity all the way into the 90s when they left there.
Wow.
So we had to bring it all the way from foundation back up and turn it into our Airbnb over there. And it incorporates with this barn. This is their original dairy barn. It is now the event center that we do. And also, if you look back there, you'll see the trellis for the wedding back there. We have our weddings, and usually there's rows of benches out there for them as well. In the fall, it's just beautiful gold and reds and stuff that you get from the hardwoods here. That's why people come do the color tours up here. We got our own little personal one that we do here. So they'll have the ceremony there, and then they go do the event inside of there, and they usually stay at the Airbnb over there. We'll walk if you want to. That's their milling shed. That is the original milling shed that came from there, and the hammer mill from the 1920s is still in there, and it's still functional. Oh, wow. We use it. Once a year, we're going to start using it to make a small batch, 1920s, hand pour, do all that with the grain. But we don't do that daily. That brings us to right here where we're going to start with production. Once we get it off of that farm over there, so that was part of the deal. Once he brought it up so she could get some kind of income out of it, that's all it started as, was that. These are our 8 grain bin silos. As you look at them, you'll see that there are 4 pipes that lead to each side, or 3 pipes that go to one side, and then there's 2 over here. Now these original 2, or these 2 on this side are not the originals. These are all the originals, because when Iron Fish started, everything was housed in that building right there where you eat at now, where the restaurant is. Our production floor was that whole first piece up there. So these pipes used to run the other direction and go into there. Part of the $1 million upgrade that they had to do ahead of schedule was all of these rick houses and production floors back here. Rick house 1 is, or it's not a rick house, it is a production house, and that's where all of our production is done now. These pipes right here have a flexible rotor that goes through them, and how they do it is they come out when they want to do their mash bill for whatever product that we're making at that time. They do a release lever. You'll see on the end, you can see the grain still inside of that red there. What they do is they release it. Then they'll go in, and I'm going to show you this NASA style keyboard that they have to put all the inputs in, and that starts up this rotor, and that'll bring it in. It'll end up in a grain tote inside of there on a scale, and once it reaches that, then it'll give that reading up there. They'll shut the system down. Unfortunately, we're still manual on these, but that's part of the next upgrade, is we're going to make that all an automated process. When it reaches that poundage, it's going to shut it on back down. These were our original ones. These were part of the upgrade. As they change it out and they go back and forth, and they'll keep coming back and forth. Now, these guys aren't insulated. You guys are, because you got that antifreeze inside of you. So let's get them inside of here. As it comes through and they order it in, you see it goes right there. That's our mash room, or sorry, our hammer mill room. And that is where the grain starts inside of our production floor.
All right.
We'll start right here. I'm going to show you a little something. Mr. Steiner, and we're doing our maple, so I don't want to go past him.
Okay.
The Steiner family is doing maple up here for 6 generations. This is where it started. This is the great-grandfather for Scott Steiner. He began it, and he began it right here in what they used to call a little sugar shack. In that sugar shack, he started for Wexford County. By the time he got this all done and got that business started up, most of the people in the county were getting their maple from him. Now, in current days, we take almost all of Mr. Steiner's maple because we need it, because our most popular products are our maple products, the rye finished, the bourbon finished, and our old-fashioned salted maple. Now, I told you about that really complex NASA board. Here it is right here. Try to follow along with me. We have 4 lines. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's all it is. Whatever pipe they need, they just turn it on right here. That's going to start that flexible system up. It's going to start bringing that grain in. This is the reading to where it is right now, so that means they've got something up on the bill right now. This is the grain tote. This is what it'll come into when it comes in there. This is our hammer mill room. I'll just have you guys come up to here because we know what that dust is like. You're probably going to see me. I'll look like a ghost when I come out of here. One of those totes will sit up here. Those 4 pipes, there's our 4 exit points right there. They're going to go into that tote when it comes up to a specific amount. That's when they're going to shut down that light switch out there. And they're going to go out and re-isolate and then open up whatever is next in the mash bill fill. Once it's on there, this guy right here goes to the bottom of that tote. On the bottom of each one of those totes is a trap door. It's going to hang up right here on that, and it's going to go right into here, and this is our hammer mill. And what a hammer mill is it's called a hammer mill because it's got 5 lever system and a striking plate on one side. That torsion goes around and around. That grain falls between those striking or hammer heads and that striking plate. It crushes them up. There's a screening system on the bottom. Once it gets fine enough to go through that screening system, our suction will take it up that pipe. It's going to come up, it's going to go over our heads, and it's going to make our first stop right over there at our mash tank. How do they do that? As you see on this side right here on this tote, that is the release lever. Once they get it to the appropriate weight and are ready to go, that's when they'll release it, crank up the hammer mill, and get the process started. Hey, am I okay right here? Okay, thank you, sir. One of our production guys. We work 6 days a week out here, 12 hours a day. Short on production on Saturday, but it used to be 5 days a week, 8 hours a day, but the demand was so much that we had to increase the staff, and probably going to have to step it up again, to be honest with you. Okay, once that product goes over, with each one of our mash bills or recipes, it's going to be about 3,600 to 3,800 pounds of grain that we bring in for that mash bill. Once it's all crushed up and it shoots across, we're going to have this mash tank over here sitting waiting with about 1,300 to 1,350 gallons of our spring water. The only thing that we do with our spring water is our aquifer well is bring it through a softener, soften up that water a little bit because that gives us where we need to be for our product. What is it? Oh. But it's typically going to come off at about 40% when it makes its journey over there. How does it turn back into that liquid that we're getting there? Because remember, we turned it into steam over here. You notice at the top, the copper stops and stainless steel starts. Why? Because that stainless steel is going to cool that vapor back down. It can make it cooler easy. As it comes across, you see that condenser there is the same condenser you have here, just a smaller version, because that's a bigger still. This condenser right here has a coiled tube that runs up all the way through this part of it right here. We're going to run that cold spring water all the way up there. That's going to encourage that vapor to cool back down underneath the volatility point. Once it's underneath that volatility point, it's going to turn itself back into liquid, and it's going to look like that coming off right there. That is the low wine run on this side. We're going to do 2 distillations. Inside of that low wine run is all the ethanol we want. But I talked about that bad guy in the story too. His name is methanol. We don't want him in our product. So at this cut, we're taking all the alcohol. But when we go to our second distillation, remember, we're transferring to 250. That's why our totes are 250 gallon totes, because we're going to do a transfer from here, 250 gallons at a time. And we're going to bring it over and put it in Ollie over there. Why is it named Ollie? It's named after Richard's grandmother, one of the owners, because when he was a little kid at all the family gatherings, he would have her go get her a cup of coffee that was really vodka spirits inside of it. And that was their little secret. So it's named after her because this is where we do our clear spirits. If you look right here, this is actually a piece of her necklace. Oh. So all the spirits go through Ollie.
Wow.
Same thing is happening over here with Stella. This is Big Stell or Stella. It's named after David's grandmother. There's another necklace you can't see on this side, but it is there. The same thing happens over there, and it's named after him because she was large and in charge. So there you go. When we bring it over here, you see we have quite a few more targeting plates over here. So we can target to a proof point, higher proof point over here as we need to. Each spirit, they know how they need to isolate each one of those. So as it passes through, you're also going to get a lot of that action with the water, so it's going to clean it up a lot more as well. When we get to this point and it comes to this condenser and it starts doing the same thing we got going on over here through that process, this is where we do our second run cuts. You do your cuts in 3 cuts. You do a heads cut, you do a hearts cut, and you do a tails cut. Why do you need those cuts? Because remember we said that bad guy burns off at 145.8. So he's going to be the first thing out of this tube. So we got to chop his head off. We want him gone. So what your distiller is going to do, he's going to at a certain time where he knows he's going to turn this on to let it start running off. Then he's going to come over and he's going to do a smell. Not a taste, because he doesn't want that methanol either. They've been trained to know what that smell is. Exactly. This is our Jake of all trades. Sorry, I'm up in his way. He's doing it all. But so what's going to happen is they will do that to the point of where they get that sweet smell that they're looking for to target our hearts. So when they get to that point, they're going to shut that valve off. They're going to run all of that into that tote. It's going to say, how do you guys mark that? For the heads. Do you mark it heads, or you just?
Actually, it just goes in that jug and then
Got it. So when they need to strip it, they repurpose it and use the strip as well. They do take some of it away, right? You don't use all of it?
No, we don't all of it.
Oh, you do use all of it? Perfect. Do utilize all of it, redistribute it, and use it as a stripper on the other side, because that's all it's good for. We also use about a milk jug of it to start our fires, our bonfires through the winter and stuff too. So we are purposing it out for some other things. Once that heads cut is gone, the next one's hearts, because it's closest to our hearts. That is what we're going to utilize for our spirit. Now, it goes in at 250 gallons. How much of it do you think we get out in hearts?
75.
75 gallons? No. Pretty close though. From the horse's mouth, what do we typically get, Jake? I think
We're at 65.
about 65 gallons.
Out of 250.
Out of 250. We get about 65 usable. Remember I talked over there, we're losing Angel share, we're losing it
Water.
over here. All the places you lose it is why, you know, it costs a little bit more because of the process for whiskey, especially good whiskey. So once you get the hearts and they pull it out of there, if you're George Dickel, you probably use a little bit too much of the tails, and that's why you get that minerally Flintstone vitamin taste. We don't like that. We don't want that in ours. So when it gets close to the tails, I think we used to utilize a little more of it.
We used to, well, back with earlier methods, we would try and redistill the tails.
Okay.
Now with our production schedule, that's a goal we're working towards, but it's
Just can't make that schedule right now.
night shift.
Right. So you're doing 24-hour operations, you're not going to be able to do that. We don't want that heavy minerally taste anyway, so you don't want too much of those tails anyway. We push those out, they pick those up and take them, right?
Oh, yeah, right.
So the chemical, the crew comes up, takes them off site and disposes of it. We could just run them down the sink if we were on like public water, but we can't do it here because we're going into a set system.
Yep.
So we wouldn't be able to support it. Our first step over here is the blending area. Inside of this blending area, they have a weight scale. Why is that important? Because as soon as you have a usable product that you can make money off of, who else wants to make money off it?
Government.
Uncle Sam, he wants to make some money too. So this is where we start weighing in our product, a usable product and stuff, start charting everything that we're producing. We do it all the way around, but this is where it gets really important because this is where you can get in trouble with the Michigan Liver Board and stuff. This is also, you see, he's got all of his blending that he's got going on, future products and stuff. The Pomau that we just released used to be in one of those little bottles over there. They finally got it perfected. And that's going to be our cider whiskey blend. That's kind of a dessert drink, that cocktail that we do now. So that Mitsunura barrel.
Ah, yes.
Here's where it resides. It's looking a little rough now because we've had several uses, but I told you about the staves.
Yeah,
Look at
beautiful.
that. Look at, yeah, I know, just beautiful barrel. This one was about $5,000. This is made out of Japanese oak. That is why it's more expensive. It's a specialty. Japan has their own whiskey and they do it all in Mitsunura barrels. So this is where we do our blending. All of that stuff happens. When it's done with blending, we'll also do our barrel fills either over there you saw off the side, or we'll do them right here on rick racks. Once those barrel fills are complete and they're ready to go to the rick house, that's where we already were, and that's when it goes over and does that process. In that year, we do our tasting. We say, oh, you know what, these are ready. We bring them back over here because we're going to bring them over here and we're going to put them into something like Daryl here, one of the big stills. We're going to repurpose that barrel for something else. If it's beyond its point, we sell them as used barrels for $150 a piece when they're done. And then we're going to go over here to our 5-person bottling area. They're going to see where that big still is right there? They're going to move that scale, put it over there. We're going to do our weigh-ins. We're going to have our proofing machine set up. It looks like an old Amiga 500 desktop computer, but it costs about 10 million times more than what they did back then. Not 10 million, that's an exaggeration, but it's probably about 20,000 for that machine. What they'll do is once it's to the right proof and the weight that they need, they're going to fix it. There's a small port on the side. They're going to fix it there with hose systems. And then you see right here, you have a start and a stop point, and you can set the milliliter you want for whatever bottle you're filling. They'll fill 4 at a time. They're going to push it on down the line. It's going to run down this line. This is where our corks are applied. They'll put the corks in right here, move it across. You see we've got some soft parade. That's that product I told you we did with Shorts Brewery. That's that compilation that we did. They're getting ready to bottle some of that up, so they preloaded the labels, get them ready to go. These were stacks of empty bottles, or they're now nothing but cardboard because they ran through. We just got done bottling a whole bunch of the bourbon for this year's estate. Not all of it, but a good portion of it. The rest of it's coming over. Once that's done, then it will be on release next month. Once it comes around there, it's going to get shrink wrap applied here. Then it will come to here, and this guy is going to be across because this is where our QA/QC step. You get about 1 case or 12 bottles off that last step. He or she is going to come over, and they're going to flip that bottle and make sure it's lined up exactly right, and make sure that cork didn't overpronounce and dent or something like that. If so, they'll heat gun it or pull that cork, run it back into the line wherever it needs to go, run it back through. Once they get a full case ready to go, he's going to pop this right here. He's going to turn it on, and it's going to run through, and that shrink wrap is going to be heated up and sealed to the bottle, and it's going to spin out right here. Our production guy is going to be over here. He's going to have this lift up chest high, and he's going to start stacking cases, hit that lift. It'll come down one section, and it'll go to the next case. Usually there's only 3 people that work here because we are so heavy. It's designed for 5, but it's usually 3 that do it. Take a guess how many cases. You're talking about 12,750 milliliters a day, or a case. But that is it. That is how we go from grain to spirit to barrels, back to bottles. And that is how it's done here at Iron Fish.
Well, that's a wrap on our Iron Fish Distillery tour.
Yeah, Dan was amazing.
Yep, we learned a lot.
That has to be one of the most informative tours I've been on.
Yeah, and a lot of fantastic tours. Iron Fish available at pretty much any of your liquor stores around Michigan.
Yeah.
And anyone I've been in, so.
We definitely have some new bottles for the bar.
We're gonna do some more tastings too because we got some new stuff, so. That's gonna be good.
This was amazing.
Yeah.
I'm glad we finally made it up here.
Yeah, if you guys can get up here, it's worth a tour. It's fantastic. The shop is great.
Plus, we made it up.
Great.
We made it up in time for the Arctic Grailing
Which was
release.
awesome.
We both got a bottle. I didn't know if you were gonna get a bottle.
I did not get a
You
bottle,
showed up
but
an hour later than I did.
yeah, no, I did get a bottle. I did.
No, I know you
I
did.
got. Yeah, I picked up the bottle of the ice cream. So
They're doing amazing things for the community and everything else.
Yeah, they're really tied into the community, which we love.
It's an awesome
So,
brand. We
yep.
can't wait to work more with them.